Welcome to today's edition of the Into Texas AI podcast. It's your look at AI news and trends impacting Texas. I'm your host, Shannon Belew. Let's get started. Beyond the headlines, AI across Texas. We're taking a closer look at some of the stories for the week of June 1st, 2026. I'm your host, Shannon Belew. One of the things I've learned covering AI is that the biggest story isn't always the one getting the biggest headline. Every week, there are announcements about data centers, billion-dollar investments, and the latest developments from the major AI companies. These stories are, of course, important, and we cover most of them here. But for me, some of the most intriguing things happening in Texas don't always fully surface in the news cycles. So this week, I wanted to spend a little time looking beyond the major headlines. We're going to talk about AI in construction, industrial commerce, insurance, and maritime technology, and even the upcoming World Cup. Okay, that last topic has definitely already garnered plenty of headlines, but we're going to discuss it from a slightly different angle today. So let's jump in. AI arrives on the construction site. McCarthy Building Companies recently announced a strategic partnership with Palantir to bring artificial intelligence deeper into construction operations. Now, McCarthy is a large national construction firm with over 8,000 employees, but they also have a footprint across Texas, including in Dallas, Austin, and Houston. Admittedly, construction may not be the first industry that comes to mind when you think about AI, but consider the complexity involved in major construction projects, from materials and equipment to labor and safety, budget, and every project generates enormous amounts of data. So, the goal of this announced partnership is to help construction teams make better decisions by bringing those pieces together and making information more actionable. Enabling better outcomes starts with McCarthy's AI operations suite, which they call Pulse, an AI native system designed to support field teams with real time insight, scenario planning, risk analysis, and just overall decision orchestration. Now, based on McCarthy's construction expertise and workflows modeled in Palantir's ontology, Pulse will help superintendents, project managers, and field operators better evaluate options, anticipate constraints, and just essentially make faster decisions on active job sites. And with major construction projects across Texas, we'll definitely get to benefit from this approach. If AI can help improve efficiency, reduce delays, or better manage resources, the impact could be significant. And if there's an industry that has been slower to realize the benefits from true digital transformation, particularly from areas around AI, infrastructure and construction would certainly fall into that bucket. So, one of the themes that you'll hear throughout today's episode is that AI isn't just changing technology companies. Increasingly, we're finding that it's making its way into many different industries which have been part of the Texas economy for generations. Speaking of which, let's take a look over at Houston and the future of industrial commerce. So, there's a Texas startup based in Houston called Resonate, and it's applying AI to industrial procurement and commercial transactions. Now, I'll be honest, procurement doesn't exactly sound like the most exciting topic in the world, but it is definitely a key piece of business operations across many industries, and including those operating in Texas. Think energy, think oil and gas, many more. But companies make thousands of purchasing and sourcing decisions every year. And AI is really ideal to help analyze that level and amount of information, to help identify opportunities, streamline processes, and essentially reduce inefficiencies. Now, Resonate describes its business as an AI powered marketplace that connects buyers and sellers of industrial equipment. Sellers list equipment through a multimodal asset digitization powered by Resonate's AI model, which then lets buyers connect with detailed information about previously unlisted assets. The company just announced that the platform successfully used AI agents to source and close a very large industrial gas compressor for a Canadian based hydrogen company. Now, according to their client, this process would normally take 5 days or more, and it was essentially completed within an afternoon. Now, that may not seem like a big deal if you're not in procurement, but it is a serious savings in time and resources. And when you're sourcing hard to find industrial parts, time matters. What caught my attention about this story, though, is that Resonate is focused on solving a very specific business problem with tangible, measurable outcomes for their clients. And I suspect we're going to see a lot more of that. The next wave of AI success stories may not come from the companies that are building AI or even the data centers to fuel it. They may instead come from the companies that are using AI to improve how business gets done. All right, let's take a turn to Austin and take a look at a company called Overhaul, which recently announced what it describes as the world's first dedicated insurance solution for AI infrastructure cargo. Now, at first, I had to stop and think about that. Insurance for transporting AI infrastructure. Well, look, it makes perfect sense. And frankly, it's hard to believe that this insurance category didn't already exist before now. Considering the billions of dollars that are invested into data centers, why wouldn't you protect that type of hardware, that movement of expensive equipment through global supply chains? Think about liquid cooled servers, GPU clusters, and so many other specialized hardware that goes into a data center. All of that equipment represents risk. And look, where risk exists, we know insurance eventually follows. In this particular case, the Austin based supply chain risk company, Overhaul, has partnered with Navion Marine and Lloyd's of London and launched the Helix Consortium. Now, it essentially integrates Overhaul's live asset level tracking into the insurance underwriting process. So, what that basically means is that there's real-time monitoring in place and it can detect anomalies during the transportation process, the shipping process. So, this includes unauthorized stops, even route detours. And when these anomalies occur, then they can notify authorities. Basically, the Helix Consortium combines the cargo risk management platform with Lloyd's of London's underwriting capacity, and it's now offering limits up to $75 million for shippers of AI hardware. To me, again, the story isn't just about the product itself. It's that we continue to see entirely new categories of business emerging because AI exists. They're not new AI tools, they're new industries around AI. And I'm really eager to see what else emerges as the market continues to mature. I mean, we're in truly early days, as we all know. All right, let's talk about autonomous ships and the Texas coast. So, for our next story, we're heading down to Brownsville, Texas. Earlier this year, Austin based Saronic proposed developing a $3.2 billion major autonomous shipbuilding facility known as Port Alpha. Now, the company also recently landed a $392 million U.S. Navy production contract. So the defense tech startup is set to design and manufacture intelligent autonomous surface vessels, or what's also known as ASVs, also considered to be maritime drones. Now, these are built specifically for the U.S. Navy and its allies. The company would like to redefine maritime warfare by mass producing unmanned AI driven ships at a fraction of the time and cost of traditional warships. So, this is a really truly intriguing company. They've gotten a great deal of attention, of investment, but the story itself has been developing over the last few months, and it really centers around this shipyard that's proposed in Brownsville. So, this week, according to multiple news reports, the local commissioners in Cameron County decided to table a critical decision, and that's offering Saronic a 95% property tax abatement, covering about 830 acres of land that all would be leased from the Port of Brownsville. The tax abatement agreement would also mean that at least 35% of workers would be recruited and hired locally. And overall, I think they're expecting at least 10,000 construction and permanent jobs to come out of this region for this project. But even so, with those potential workforce benefits, some residents are not convinced that it's a good opportunity, citing everything from environmental concerns to corporate trust issues. And with a couple of commissioners not able to attend the meeting in person, the decision was made to pause until the next meeting. Residents who spoke up against the shipyard, there were about a dozen people who spoke for it. But while we're waiting, and what came out, after the meeting, is that you know the recognition that there are other states vying for this shipyard project. One which was apparently already known to the commissioners. That's a location in California. But then there was another state which apparently they did not realize was in the running, and that's Virginia. So, this makes me realize I think there are always a couple of things that surface with stories like these. First, there continues to be incredible economic development opportunities that AI driven projects bring to rural communities. Projects that also help keep Texas on the map as a US and even global leader in building out much needed AI infrastructure and then the related ecosystems that comes out of that. But the second thing is that while that's all great, there are many times residents from these rural communities who just are not convinced that these projects will ultimately help them or their families and may even come as a detriment to them, right? So you have to ask, is Texas at risk of giving up substantial economic investments and its position as a global AI leader to states like Virginia and California and others that we've seen across the Midwest? And if so, will rural communities ultimately win or lose in these high stake bets on AI? Well, again, big questions that we're certainly not going to answer this week, and we'll continue watching this story. There's a lot on the line for the people, for the businesses, and it's going to be interesting to see how it shakes out as well for the entire state. All right, let's lighten things up now and finish with something a little different and maybe a bit more upbeat and talk about the World Cup. So, Lenovo recently announced that AI powered infrastructure supporting FIFA World Cup operations will be connected to systems that are based in Dallas. The technology is expected to support media workflows and broadcast operations during what's undeniably the largest sporting event on the planet. Now, here are some of the other areas I thought were interesting where Lenovo, according to their website, are utilizing AI during FIFA. One is AI enabled 3D player avatars, which are supposed to provide a clearer and real time visualization of complex game decisions such as offside calls. Built using advanced Gen AI and real world player data, these avatars are designed to help fans better understand the game as it's happening, as well as serve as an additional resource to FIFA's match officials. That's pretty interesting. They also have AI driven navigation systems, which are meant to reduce congestion and improve movement across the various venues that are hosting the games. AI driven stabilized, what they call referee views, are also intended to provide a first person perspective with significantly less motion distortion. So, again, quality improvements. And then there's immersive digital and holographic experiences that are being created. And this is to really elevate that fan experience. Lenovo says that they are actively transforming the sports industry. And with the FIFA World Cup 2026, Lenovo will deploy its FIFA AI Pro platform, which is a next generation AI powered knowledge assistant delivering tactical insights to coaches, to the players and even analysts. And this will be available to all 48 participating teams. Now, we've certainly seen how AI is increasingly being incorporated into the sports arena. We talked about it in terms of the NFL earlier this year. And I think some of the most impactful uses of AI are happening probably off the field. While there are still plenty that are front and center, and again, really are meant to help elevate that fan engagement and give a better experience to those of us watching from the sidelines. But again, I think this is just another place to watch AI help organizations manage complexity and operate more effectively. So, as Dallas prepares to host World Cup matches in just a couple of weeks, it's another example of Texas playing a role in a global AI ecosystem. Now, if we could only have used AI to help bring down the cost of those tickets, but that's a topic for another day. So let's close out and say, for now, as I look across this week's many AI related stories, one thing stands out to me. We're seeing more examples of AI being successfully applied to real world challenges and delivering tangible, measurable outcomes for businesses of all types. AI is more than just a technology story. It's a business story. It's a workforce story. It's a community story, and increasingly a Texas story. As always, I'd love to hear what caught your attention this week. Which of these stories would you even like to see explored in a future deep dive episode? Drop me a comment and let me know. I love hearing from you. All right. Thanks for listening to today's episode of Into Texas AI. I am your host, Shannon Belew. And until next time, keep learning, keep questioning, and keep looking beyond the headlines.